Well, joining me now is the first of 4 Republican presidential candidates who are on with us this morning. It's Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good morning.
Let me ask you first on the Supreme Court opening. Do you have a litmus test? Do you have a litmus test on Roe v. Wade? Do you have a litmus test on Citizens United when it comes to deciding who you might appoint to the Supreme Court should you become president?
Well, I think we have some great people out there. Diane Sykes from Wisconsin, from what everybody tells me, would be outstanding. We need a conservative person. I think that certainly we have some great people. We lost one of the greats. I'd like to have the person tailored to be just like Justice Scalia. Justice Scalia was truly a great judge.
How will you
respected by all.
Well, that's
both
what
sides.
I mean. How will you determine that? How will you determine whether you got somebody who's going to uphold?
I mean, look, you never know. You never know what happens, Chuck. You look at where a guy like Ted Cruz pushed very hard for Justice Roberts. Everyone thought that was wonderful, and Justice Roberts let everybody down by approving Obamacare twice. I mean, he really did let us down, and that's largely Cruz's fault and the Bush fault because they put the wrong guy in there. That was a shocking decision. So, you know, you never really know, but at the time he looked okay, but that was a Ted Cruz mistake because he pushed him very hard. Look, we need great intellect. We need, I say, absolutely conservative. But I think the real plan for it would be somebody just like Justice Scalia.
All right, I want to move on to the debate last night.
By the way, which is hard to find.
I think a lot of conservatives will agree with you. I want to go to the debate last night. Your 2008 comments about George W. Bush were brought up. And this idea that you were surprised at the time that then Speaker Pelosi had ruled out impeachment. Did you believe that, and I just want to clarify this, did you believe that there was enough there to bring up impeachment proceedings against George W. Bush in 2008 over Iraq?
No, I was in the private sector, so I didn't think about it too much. But certainly the war in Iraq was a disaster. No, not to be impeached, but the war in Iraq was a disaster. It was a mistake. He just made a mistake. We went into Iraq. We lost thousands of lives. We lost trillions of dollars.
You don't believe it's an impeachable offense now? You were implying that it might be in 2008.
Well, that's for other people to say. And look, that is for other people to say. I can say this. It may not have been impeachable because it was a mistake. I think it was a mistake, but it was a horrible mistake. Number one, there were no weapons of mass destruction. So, you know, did they know there weren't or not? That would tell you something right there. But there were no weapons of mass destruction. Chuck, the war in Iraq was a disaster. We end up with absolutely nothing. Iran is taking over Iraq as we sit here right now, and as sure as you can be, Iran is doing pretty well worldwide. They take our $150 billion. We get nothing. They're taking over Iraq. They're getting the oil. It was a disastrous decision, the war in Iraq. And unfortunately, Bush happened to be president.
You were saying that President Bush lied. How do you know he lied about WMD?
I think that people knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction. I think they wanted to go in there. I think they thought it would have been easier. They didn't prosecute the war well. It wasn't well prosecuted, and they ended up leaving. Now, I have to say, he made a mistake getting in, and I'm the only one on the stage that said we should not go into Iraq, that the war in Iraq is a mistake. Everyone else said, oh, they're all, you know, all of the other people on stage. I should get points for vision.
Well,
because everybody admits,
actually, let me
even
pause
Jeb
you there.
Bush, it took Jeb Bush 5 days.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It took Jeb Bush 5 days to say that the Iraq war was a mistake. He went back and forth, back and forth. Then finally his pollster told him what he had to say. But Jeb Bush, and then he admitted that it was a mistake, finally, after 5 days. In fact, it almost, look, he's got no chance anyway, but it almost cost him the election before he even started.
Well, I want to, just for what it's worth, PolitiFact has never been able to find, none of us have been able to find any instance where before the invasion you came out against this war. Why is that?
Well, I did it in 2003. I said it before that. Don't forget, I wasn't a politician. So people didn't write everything I said. I was a business person. I was a, as they say, world-class business person. I built a great company. I employ thousands of people. So I'm not a politician. But if you look at 2003, there are articles. If you look at 2004, there are articles. In fact, I saw somebody commenting on it last night, that Trump really was against the war. I was against it. Look, I'm the most militaristic person. I'm going to build the military bigger, better, stronger. Hopefully we'll never have to use it, but nobody's going to mess with us. But I will say this, the war in Iraq. It was a mistake. Anybody would have realized Iran and Iraq, they used to fight. They'd go back, forth. Chuck, you destabilized the Middle East. I'm the only one that called it. I was the only one that called it.
You made it clear that you wanted to remind people that 9/11 happened, I believe you used the phrase, during George Bush's reign. Do you believe that George Bush kept America safe?
No, because the World Trade Center was knocked down. Look, that's another myth. I wish he did. I have nothing against him. I don't know him. I don't know that I don't think I ever met him. I don't think I did meet him. I have nothing against George Bush. I'm just saying, when Jeb Bush gets upset, my brother kept America safe. How did he keep us safe when the World Trade Center, during his time in office, came down? I was there. I lost many, many friends in that tragedy. That was the worst tragedy in the history of this country, worse than Pearl Harbor, because they attacked civilians. They attacked people in office buildings.
And you think George W. Bush could have prevented this?
Walking on the streets.
You believe he could have prevented this?
Well, according to, if you go back, you will see the CIA and other agencies had information that bad things were going to happen. And yes, the answer is he should have known. They were not talking to each other. There was total disassociation. They didn't like each other. All of the different agencies were a mess. They were fighting with each other. Absolutely, they should have known. They should have known something. Osama bin Laden should. Hey, look, I wrote about Osama bin Laden in 2000 in a book. I was talking about Osama bin Laden. If I know about Osama bin Laden just by seeing press and seeing, what's going on, why wouldn't the President of the United States know about Osama bin Laden?
Well, let me ask you this. In South Carolina, as you know, George W. Bush is popular among Republicans. This is a risky strategy. You called him a liar last night about WMD, and you essentially said you would have been okay had
I didn't call him a liar. I didn't call anybody a liar. I said,
well, you called Ted Cruz a liar.
Look, I said maybe, Chuck, I said maybe there were lies because, look, there were the weapons of mass destruction. They said they existed, and they didn't exist. Now, it was his group that said there are weapons of mass destruction. That's why we went in. That's why so many people got hoodwinked into going into Iraq. Then they go in there, they searched high and dry, they looked all over, there were no weapons of mass destruction. It turned out that there were absolutely not, there were no weapons of mass destruction. Now, is it a lie? I don't know. If you
lose South Carolina, you think the game change moment people will point to is what happened last night and what you said about George W. Bush. But if you win, does this prove that the Republican Party is rejecting Bush?
No, I don't think so. I think they're rejecting the war in Iraq. The war in Iraq is a disaster. I have a great relationship with South Carolina and the people. I've known them for a long time. I've been there many times. I have great relationships there. They're very smart people. They understand that the war in Iraq is a disaster and was a disaster. It totally destabilized the Middle East. When you look at the migration, when you look at all of the things that are happening right now, it all started with the war in Iraq. And you know what? We got nothing. We have absolutely nothing. Iran is getting the whole deal.
Mr. Trump, I have to leave it there. A little short on time this morning. I look forward to speaking with you again soon, I hope. Thanks for coming on and stay safe on the trail.
Thank you very much.
Well, moments